everyone, and welcome to University of Rhode Island Computer Science and Statistics. In today's lesson, I'm actually going to show you how to set up SSH using your VIOS router in GNS3. So to set up SSH in your VIOS router, the first thing you're going to need to do is to create a new project in GNS3. So I'm going to go to File, New Blank Project, and I'm going to title this Introduction to SSH and Telnet. And then I'm going to click OK. Okay. So right now, I have a blank project that I just set up in my GNS3. All right. So to set up SSH, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a few devices over from my installed appliances. Okay. So I'm going to bring over one PC. Okay. And I'm going to title this PC, just for the sake of it, Boston MA. Let's envision that this is a workstation that's in Boston, Massachusetts that I may need to access. All right. I'm going to add a switch just for the sake of adding a switch. And then I'm going to add a VIOS, a layer 3 router. Remember this is a layer 2 switch, so you really can't do much with this layer 2 switch, but we're adding it anyway. So we're going to have another layer 2 switch in between. Okay. And so right now we have our router, which is going to allow for routing to occur. We have a PC that's in Boston, and let's add a new PC. Okay, we're not going to bring the PC too far since we're in Rhode Island. We're going to say that this PC is right now in Rhode Island. Let's do Providence. All right. So right now this PC is in Providence, Rhode Island, and we're going to add our network link layers. All right. And then we're going to connect this network link layer. All right. I was supposed to do it the other way around, so let's fix that. Delete. Let's delete this also. Let's completely restructure this configuration. All right, so let's only put one switch in between the two. Okay. And let's do two routers. All right, because the routing is really what we're going to care about. So Ethernet, I'm going to apply this to Ether1, add it to the switch, from the switch to this, again, from this Ether1 to this Providence. All right, perfect. So I now have this Ethernet switch that doesn't really have much of anything. So I'm going to title this Boston router. I'm going to do Boston R1. And then I'm going to title this, sorry, I did it backwards, Boston R1 then. This one's in Boston, that has to be. And then we're going to title this Providence R1. Okay. So essentially what we have here is here's my router for Providence, and here's my router for Boston. Okay. I'm going to start all nodes to make sure that everything is working and functioning properly. And I'm going to go through a few steps that I would take to configure and set up SSH to make sure that this works properly. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to log into my console. So I'm going to console into my first router. Once I console into this router, okay, you remember that the default username and password for your router is VIOS if you didn't configure it and set up a personal username, right? And so I'm going to log in VIOS. Okay. So right now I'm currently logged into this router, right? And this router essentially gives me access to anything that's on this network, any machines, etc. Okay. So let's say I happen to be in Boston and I need to remote into this router to make some changes and some configuration. So the first thing I'm going to do before I can set up anything in this router, I'm going to do show int, right, to see what I have as far as interfaces. And as you can tell right now, I have no interfaces really set up for this Providence R1 router. So I'm going to also console into the Boston router as well, just so we can have both of them working side by side. So as I run my configuration, there's no confusion. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do show inc. Well, first I have to log in actually. So let's do that. All right. So BIOS, and then I'm going to do show inc. And right now you notice that none of my interfaces have been set up for either router. So the first thing that I have to do is for Providence, I'm going to switch over to my configuration mode, which is going to allow me to configure my router. Okay. And I'm going to set up an interface for that router. So the interface that I'm going to set up for this router is going to be, so let's just write this out, set interface. And let's do Ethernet ethos 0. So we're setting up our ethos 0. Let's give it an IP address of 192.168.0.1/24. Okay. We're going to commit this and then we're going to save it. And we're going to do a show inc to make sure. So let's exit out of the configuration mode to make sure that it took over and that it's processed. Okay. So right now I have my Ether1 set up and I essentially set up the internet 0 interface for this particular router. Okay. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to essentially follow the same exact step. Only difference is, right, I have to first launch the configuration mode. Only difference is I am going to change this from 1 to, let's say, 5. Okay. I'm going to commit this and then I'm going to save my changes. I'm going to exit and then I'm going to do a show inc. And you're going to see that the interface for this particular router here is set up for the ethos 0 at .5. Okay. So you remember, if you recall correctly, in the previous lecture where I talked about SSH, SSH essentially allows for you to create what is known as a secure shell for your connection, right? It's a peer-to-peer connection that allows for us to create what is known as a secure shell.